Hey guys, wanted to do a breakdown of the Jon Jones versus Ciryl Gane fight. It's really short, and the UFC stretched this video out to 8 minutes because reasons. But I do want to go over it because this is Jon Jones' last fight, even though it is almost 2 years ago. I do feel as though, for the most part, the Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic fight is a bit of a nothing burger, and he should be facing Tom Aspinall. I think that's how most people feel about this. If you're in the MMA world, I think you probably think that, unless you're an absolute Jon Jones nut rider. But I want to highlight a couple things before we get into the breakdown just to kind of prove my point. So, Jon Jones' last fight was in March 4th, 2023. That is almost 2 years ago now. You have a defending interim champion in Tom Aspinall that he is refusing to face and has no interest in facing. It's very obvious. He is fighting a 42-year-old Stipe Miocic, who I believe hasn't fought in almost 4 years. And even this victory, right, against the Ciryl Gane is not that impressive, really, when you start looking at it. But we'll highlight that in 2 seconds. But I want to go behind that is the next fight that he had was almost 3 years. I think actually it was 3 years before that, right? So you got February 8th, 2020 here against Dominic Reyes. He wins a unanimous decision. It's insane. Dominic Reyes clearly wins this fight. I don't understand how he won this fight. But judging, whatever. That's at 205. Then he also faces Thiago Santos here, and that is in 2019. That's a little less time in between, but you're still looking at almost a year in activity in that scenario. And that's a split decision. And, Santos here had 2 torn ACLs, and a lot of people thought he won that fight. It's debatable. He certainly did more damage. And then you have Anthony Smith, who he beats, right? Anthony Smith, not to shit on Anthony Smith, but Anthony Smith is not anything that special. He's not very good. And that was a 5-round decision. So he took a guy who's really a placeholder in the UFC's 205 division to a 5-round unanimous decision. So his recent wins, in my opinion, don't look super impressive. Now, people would be like, well, what about a Ciryl Gane? He's a killer, so forth. Well, I want to highlight some of his wins too. So this is Ciryl Gane's record here. This is going to be the last fight that a Ciryl Gane had, which is against Spivak. That is over a year ago now. Now that's an impressive win. Spivak's pretty good. He has a loss to Jon Jones in 2 minutes. When a lot of people, especially when you watch this fight, it's going to look like he's just scared. And he also, I don't think, has any grappling. I truly believe that Ciryl Gane is a one-trick pony. I've said before that I think a prime Usman would probably take him down against the cage, even though he's a heavyweight. I don't think he can wrestle to save his life, and I don't think he even trains to wrestle at all, from what I can see. Then he has a win over Taya Tuivasa, but he got that was a fight. Taya Tuivasa landed shots again. Not trying to shit on Taya Tuivasa, but like, the guy is, again, very one-trick pony. He's not good at wrestling, not good at jiu-jitsu. He just throws hands. He doesn't really kick a whole lot. He's a shorter guy. He's kind of fat. He doesn't really like show up like how he should. He is a frame-wise barely a 205er. A lot of 85ers are bigger than he is. And then you got a loss to Francis Ngannou. This is Francis Ngannou, who wrestle fucked him over 5 rounds and his knees were completely screwed, right? And then your next big win is Derek Lewis, which, again, that's more impressive. And I would say the Volkov win's pretty impressive, no doubt. But Derek Lewis is super hit and miss. Sometimes he shows up, sometimes he doesn't. If he can't win in the first or second, he tends to kind of wilt, right? I would say the Volkov win is pretty impressive, but that's all the way back in 2021. So I'm just saying all this to paint the picture that I don't think that Jon Jones has been in a competitive fight really since 2020. Okay, so let's get into the breakdown of the fight. I'm going to skip ahead to this point because literally nothing happens up until a Ciryl Gane kicks Jon Jones square in the nuts. Basically nothing goes on. Again, this fight's very, very short. So right here, what you're going to see is Ciryl Gane use his lead side to try to fight Jon Jones lead hand. He's actually beating the front foot here as well. He's going to go for an outside leg kick here, which is a good strategy when you're in the opposite stance. Jon Jones also adopts that strategy in this fight as well. The difference is Jon Jones is going to step in, which is smart, to jam the kick and counter with his rear hand. And bang. Jon Jones also reaches down as he throws that kick because Jon Jones is looking to catch that leg and possibly hit him or push him and run through him as he switches his stance, getting a takedown. So that was one of the ways I think he was trying to enter in for the takedown off this. Catches the Ciryl Gane chin up. Ciryl Gane's really lazy with his hand placement. A lot of times he's very like low and lackadaisical and kind of in and out like a karate guy. And again, right here, you're going to see the same thing. What he's going to do is reach out Ciryl Gane is with his lead hand, and he is going to try to fight the lead hand for the outside leg. Jon is going to reach down and try to counter, hit the two. Doesn't hit the two, but you see him try to run through for the takedown that time as well. It's a really good strategy if you're trying to force the takedown on somebody who's the opposite stance as you. One of the things can be really difficult when you face somebody who's a southpaw in MMA, if you're trying to wrestle them, is it's very hard to shoot because their hip is open to you, which is the natural sprawl position, right? So it's like you have to, in order to get your shoulders square to their hips, you have to bring, if you're standing like this and their hips are open to you, right? So they're open the other direction from you, you have to bring your right shoulder all the way across yourself to get your shoulders in line to their hips in order to get a takedown. So you'll notice that like Jon Jones was trying to, he was trying to be like back here like this, right? And Ciryl Gane is in the opposite stance of him. So when he's coming through, he's reaching down for the leg to get him off balance. He knows that leg's going to stay there. He's throwing his right hand. That's creating his hips and his shoulders in the direction he needs to come in and finish that takedown. He just wasn't able to get it on those two times. Something else that Jon Jones does a really good job of in this fight is just cutting a Ciryl Gane off and bullying him straight back. Also, if you look at stances right now, Jon Jones' hands and stance is just generally better. He keeps his hands up really well. He pressures forward. He uses a lot less motion to do what he needs to do, so he's not burning energy. Footwork starts to become a huge issue with heavyweights, right? Because you are going to burn a lot of energy if you are a big dude and you're jumping around constantly. So it's hard to stay moving like a Ciryl Gane is, and it's pretty easy for somebody like Jon Jones to kind of march forward. So I'm not saying you shouldn't have light footwork as a heavyweight. You see professional boxers, big guys. I mean, both Usyk and Fury have really good footwork and they bounce a lot. And I'm not saying you can't do that as a heavyweight. I'm just saying that maybe, especially if you know you're going to have to wrestle also, bouncing up and down the whole time is maybe not the best choice. It is going to burn you out. Anyways, right here, you're going to see Jon Jones pressure forward pretty well. And he does a lot of little feint motions, little stuff like that, just to get Ciryl Gane back. And then he'll just pressure forward. And you notice that a Ciryl Gane just doesn't feel comfortable. And you see Jon Jones cuts him off to the side, and the Ciryl Gane feels like he has to bounce side to side in order to do anything. Now, right here, Ciryl Gane probably should have thrown strikes, but he doesn't. And Jon Jones kind of just goes, okay, well, I'll cut you off over here. Ciryl Gane had a really good opportunity to circle all the way out there. He got off the cage, and then he didn't bother circling off. That black line on the ground is a good indicator. He should have circled and broke that black line and then been in open space. You'd have a lot more space to work with, especially if you're a Ciryl Gane type who's kind of a point in and out guy. Ciryl Gane kind of gets Jon Jones here to react. Jon Jones puts his head down and just throws wildly, switches his stance coming forward. And then in order to kind of be like, okay, I'm not in a great position, I'm going to fake a spinning technique. That's a good example of like a Ciryl Gane not really taking advantage of pretty good openings in this fight that I think he could have. There's a few of them, but that one I think is a big indicator. To me, there was a lot of things he could have went for, and I think a Ciryl Gane was starstruck, maybe is the right word, intimidated, just overwhelmed by the situation, all of the things, but he just would not pull the trigger like at all. And when he does, he pulls the trigger on something kind of stupid, in my opinion. So right here, Ciryl Gane throws a jab down to the body. That was a good shot. He pulls straight back. He actually has the foot placement right here on the outside of Jon Jones, which is ideal. Stance looks good. Hands are okay. And then he does a pretty loaded rear left hand, this big jump. And Jon has a really good reaction to this, to be honest. His reflexes are really good here. He parries his jab off the center line and slips and takes the back. Here's the problem. That probably doesn't happen if a Ciryl Gane doesn't totally switch his stance. So again, we're going to watch this, but a Ciryl Gane loads up his left hand really heavily and then like power and throws his whole hip into this punch. So this back leg, right, should be staying where he's at. If he had stayed in position and thrown like his left hook, or if he had framed down with that left arm and kept his hip away, he's not all the way in on the shot. But if Ciryl Gane steps through, right, and this is why like some of your fundamental stuff just needs to be better. Like, you shouldn't be throwing punches and completely switching your stance unless you're doing it on purpose. I tell my guys that I train all the time, you can do anything as long as you know what you're doing and why you're doing it. If you're doing something like you're every time you throw a punch, like every time I throw a punch, I'm literally switching my stance. And the reason I'm switching my stance is because, well, it just feels comfortable. And it's like, yeah, but it doesn't mean it's right. Like, you have to have a reason for why you're doing what you're doing. Right there, I don't think he has a reason. I think he's used to just exploding through that rear hand and being in a switch stance. And that throws him straight into this technique right here that Jon drops into, this double leg position. So, like I said a second ago, this is where Jon Jones wants to be. He wants his hips, right? He wants his shoulders in line to Gane's hips and shoulders. And this puts him in a really strong wrestling position. And from here, Jon Jones just chases the back, right? Just goes to the back. Look, he chases the shoulder blade, goes to the back, and then his inside leg is blocking Ciryl Gane's left leg here, right? And he pulls him over that to off balance him, right? You can't get him that way, but if Ciryl Gane's off balance, and then Jon Jones puts all the weight on the front leg and covers that front leg and then drops him in. The fact that Jon Jones is a phenomenal wrestler. So grappling wise, like the stuff that Jon Jones does is exceptional in this fight, especially once they get against the cage. I think it's really, really, really high level stuff. I think there's the argument that Jon Jones is not the GOAT. He's certainly top three. I think that some people act as though Jon Jones is the clear GOAT. I always agree with that. But all the top three ones that everybody always brings up, it's Mighty Mouse, GSP, Jon Jones. You can make arguments for why and against. All three of those guys are not the GOAT. When it comes to the grappling portion of what Jon Jones does at his size, it is really exceptional, and he just does a good job of transitioning through here. But the fact that a Ciryl Gane will put himself into positions like this, both feet off the ground, and then doesn't have a good reaction back to anything. I'm not saying that Jon Jones did a good job of transitioning quickly from spot to spot. It's the fact that a Ciryl Gane's reaction were so poor, right? So he tries to turn back into him. He can't, right? He's kind of fighting the hands, but he's never getting his hips forward. Jon Jones is doing a good job. Again, he's pulling him off balance. But look at this. Like, honestly, Jon Jones' right hand right here is clear and open, right? How is Jon Jones one-handing you back like this? I know he's strong, but his right hand is not on you anymore, which means from another angle, if you were on the other side of this, looking in where this cameraman is up in this corner, you would be able to see that Jon Jones' hands are not together. And if Jon Jones' hands aren't together, he shouldn't be holding you. You should be able to turn away. This right shoulder and right hip of a Ciryl Gane is open, and he should be able to move his hip rotationally, right, towards Jon, right? He should be able to turn towards his left side and start rotating away. Jon Jones is just big brothering you with one arm here. And you're not a small guy, you're a big dude. So like, what's going on, right? Jon Jones gets his hands back together right away. Like, during that transition right there where Jon Jones' arm is free, you need to be escaping. And then just kind of the general reactions here that Ciryl Gane has, like everything's like these big plotty steps that he's making. Again, it's a very like it looks like somebody who hasn't wrestled before. That's the best example I can give you. His steps are very large, right? In wrestling, when you're wrestling guys and they're starting to like try to take you down, everything's a lot faster and smaller, faster steps, right? So Ciryl Gane has these big plod, 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 fall kind of steps. Goes face first. And again, Jon Jones is an exceptional wrestler, so I'm not trying to take anything away from him. But at the same time, it does look like a Ciryl Gane just doesn't have some of the fundamentals that's necessary. So right here, Jon Jones covers the hip. He locks up the leg from a Ciryl Gane. Does a really good job of this, just hooking his leg and pulling this ankle out, right? So we always want to kind of do that if we're able to, ideally. So, this way we're in a position where it's just putting a lot of pressure on this knee and hip, and it's making it very hard for you to yank your foot through easily. And Jon Jones is essentially sitting on this with his hamstring and his calf. He's also punching with the other hand. He's covering the hip from this side. Ciryl Gane should be trying to build his base here and kick out and fight these hands. So he should be trying to get his hands, essentially he needs to get up on this foot that is open, and he needs to fight the hands with his hands. Jon Jones does a good job there of extending his body. So you notice how he's extending out and putting all of his pressure into the back of his hip and his knee. He's almost like humping the back of his leg here. And he's got this ankle hooked, right? So this puts a lot of pressure on that leg. Again, Ciryl Gane is just kind of letting all of this weight on one side be here. Jon Jones is not high on him. And again, like he should be trying to build up to this left leg. Ciryl Gane should be. Man, Ciryl Gane just kind of looks lost right here. There's a lot of time right here. Well, I mean, again, Jon Jones is putting a lot of pressure on this leg. I'm not trying to take that away. He's doing a good job of covering the hip. He's controlling this base arm, but your whole left side's open. And you got to like bring that leg up, man. You got to start like building up that leg, right? And you got to start trying to stand up. So what you'll notice right here is that Jon Jones has totally extended himself out at this point. He's reaching for either this back wrist, so the left wrist of a Ciryl Gane here, or he's trying to cover the knee. He was originally trying to cover the knee. He was taking his right arm and covering a Ciryl Gane's left knee. Why is he doing that? Or why is he doing the wrist? It's because Jon Jones is aware that the escape for Ciryl Gane is building up off that left side because he has control of a Ciryl Gane's right side. And so he's trying to reach through and get control of that left side. And Ciryl Gane's just kind of sitting here like a deer in headlights. Right here, you'll notice that Jon Jones is on the leg still. Done a really good job of just completely dominating that one leg. He has his head inside here, hand around the outside of the hip. And his right hand, again, like I said, is going to be reaching for that back leg. Ciryl Gane sat in a position for a very long time where he did nothing with his left leg to get himself built up at all. He didn't even really like try to scoot himself to the cage that much. His whole left side was up, and I get it. Like this leg's extended out. It's not easy to do, but you got to push on the head with your right arm. You have to extend yourself out. You need to start building up your left arm. You need to start building up your left leg. You need to get to the cage and work from there. And Jon Jones gets the takedown off of that, at least somewhat, covering the hip again, pulling the leg, pushing through. It's a pretty easy classic little takedown you can get from this position. If you've done any amount of jiu-jitsu for a long time, I mean, every purple belt in jiu-jitsu has done a version of this at one time or another. So you can see it caused a scramble. Jon Jones quickly transitions. And that's the big difference here is like a Ciryl Gane just feels like he has no answer, right? He does something, gets a little bit of space, and immediately Jon Jones jumps him. So Jon Jones has the rear body lock. He's kind of hanging high, knees in. He's basically just kind of just riding the guy from the back, like wrestling style. One of the things Jon Jones does really good right here is he makes sure he gets himself between the cage and a Ciryl Gane. So what he's trying to do here is he's trying to cover with this left knee, making sure that Ciryl Gane can't build up to the cage. He's also covering with his right knee, and then his right shoulder is blocking him from getting to the cage so that he can't build up easily. And that's kind of the face. That's the meme of this whole fight. Ciryl Gane's face of what the fuck am I going to do? Jon Jones' back knee there, that right knee is blocked the cage at this point. His hips in the way, his shoulders in his way, his head's in the way of the cage, which means Ciryl Gane cannot easily just push himself against the cage and stand up. it does look like Jon Jones decided I'm probably not going to be able to hold that position. So Ciryl Gane starts getting his shoulder against the cage and he starts building himself up from there. So what are we seeing here? What we're seeing is that Jon Jones is kicking his leg up and over the front leg that a Ciryl Gane is trying to build up to stand up. What a Ciryl Gane's doing here isn't actually wrong. He should be basically trying to do this. He should have been trying to do this in open air sooner and drag himself to the cage and start this. But Jon Jones' limbs are crazy long, and what you're going to see here in 2 seconds is that Jon Jones is going to kick his leg and lace it over the top of this leg and lace it underneath the other leg and actually get kind of a trip or a sweep off of this. So Jon Jones sticks his left leg around and through the other leg right here and puts a lot of weight on a Ciryl Gane's body right here. And you can see the position that Ciryl Gane's in right now. So Gane is basically, both his legs are kind of together. You can see where his body weight is, right? Like he is having to really lean forward to make sure that he doesn't fall backwards, right? You can see his right hand wants to grab the cage so badly. And Jon, again, just is doing a good job. He has height here. He's on his hips. He has him off balance. His other leg's nice and posted. He has his leg cut through and he's going to be sweeping out the back leg here. Ciryl Gane's right leg is wrapped. You can see the wrap right there. Just brought the leg up. See how the leg's up in the air now. And he's going to try to off balance him. Now, here's the most impressive thing in this whole fight, in my opinion. It's not any of the other stuff that happened. It's this. It's this position right here, and the transition off is really, 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 really nice. Ciryl Gane starts to try to balance himself and turn back in. As that happens, Jon Jones will transition down for the double leg. So Ciryl Gane tries to fight. Get out of the fucking way, ref. God. And tries to turn into him, but he can't. And Jon Jones drops in and just takes the double, right? It's because the only option he had there at that point, for the most part, was going to be to try to get his leg free and turn back into him. As he turns back into him, he's giving Jon the back leg, right? And since the back leg's there, Jon can just drop back in for the takedown. So I think that's worth watching again. We should probably rewind that. So again, we're back in this position right here. Jon Jones has the front leg covered and the rear leg basically a lot of pressure on both legs because it is causing a Ciryl Gane to feel like he's going to get tripped here, right? Like he's going to fall off balance backwards. So he feels like he's going to fall to his left side, so his back left butt cheek, if you will. And so Ciryl Gane will start to turn that direction, right? So as he turns that direction, Jon's going to transition down for the takedown, right? I really wish he wasn't in the way. All right, right here. So Ciryl Gane's trying to turn in, right? But as he turns in, he's just not in a strong position. He has to like turn back towards Jon, and Jon just falls into him and goes after both legs here. Just drops in, gets his hands together, just classic double leg, right? And just brings him straight down, pulls him off balance. Really, really, really slick. Then covers the hips and not covers the hips, I'm sorry, gets his hands underneath his butts and he works his head up very quickly from here. He doesn't want to stay down very long, right? So he wants to get to a position, covers the legs, so he traps the legs so there's no easy route for him to stand up. This is one of my favorite techniques. If you get a guy down against the cage and they're basically in this seated position like this, if you cover their legs, even just step over their legs like this, it is very hard for them to just explode up. And when that happens, you could posture and actually just take a high position right away, right? So you'll notice what happens here is Jon basically just covers the legs and starts to stand up on top of them. Because what is he going to do? So if Ciryl Gane starts pushing against the cage here to try to stand up, it doesn't matter, right? So even if Ciryl Gane got both of his legs straight back to the cage and he's really quick and he starts to explode up, Jon's on top of him. So like you're exploding up and you're pushing up into a fully grown man who's on top of you, who's going to be sitting back down into you. It almost automatically puts you into this mount position. This position fucking sucks. I'm going to be really honest with you. The reason it sucks is because it's hard to actually kind of get out of and do much with. If you watched, I think Sean O'Malley and Marab got into this position in their fight, or a version of it, if I recall. It's been a minute. I could be wrong on that, but it kind of gets you stuck here, right? Because you got your head down like this, so you have no strength, and both your legs are kind of out. And if you move, you're going to get into a worse position, right? Jon Jones, Gane here could move. And if he moves, he could end up on his back worse in a flat mounted position. Right here, it's hard to get like beat up, like struck, right? Like it's very hard for the person on top of you to hit you. But from a positionally dominating position or a domination point of view, this is also a very hard position to lose or for the person on bottom to do much with, right? So you're positionally dominating them really well. You're kind of giving the person on bottom not a lot of good choices, and most of the time they'll kind of hang out right here as opposed to just get their head beat in. This is a heavyweight fight, and 2 minutes into the fight, getting in this position is horrendous. They're both really dry. He's really heavy, so forth. So at the moment, Jon Jones doesn't really have a Ciryl Gane's head. I have no doubt Jon Jones squeezes like a motherfucker, though. So even in this position, Jon Jones just cranking across your face with his forearm is probably horrible. And you can see the side position right here. Jon Jones doesn't look like he has it across the neck entirely. But again, you can see this isn't a great spot. Ciryl Gane's really only good option. His arm's kind of caught. He's probably not going to be able to get his arms in to fight the choke. So what can he really do? He can try to get his feet kind of together and start turning to his side, but he's probably going to get full mounted flat on his back, and that's going to equal Jon Jones doing ground and pound from full mount. Probably most people are going to choose to try to survive here and hope that Jon Jones maybe burns his arms out a little bit and they can explode out of the position. Right here, you'll notice that Jon Jones let go of the choke, is still holding this top position. It looks like he's trying to reacquire his leg position underneath and bring Ciryl Gane's legs together. At this point, I don't think that he has completely committed to the idea he's going to finish the guillotine. He's probably thinking, okay, well, I'm not going to burn my arms out. I can, if it's there, it's there. That's great. But if I can get him flat on his back, I can just elbow him to death. Big mistake here, I think, for Ciryl Gane is Ciryl Gane tries to get the left underhook and thinking, okay, I'm going to start trying to build my hips up. And Jon Jones overhooks that position. And this is what helps set up, I think, the guillotine for him from this position. It's a little bit hard to say just because of the fact that the camera angles obviously aren't the best. And also it's just a kind of human knot position where you can't really see what happens. And you can see here, this is when Jon Jones starts really cranking down on this guillotine position. Jon Jones' right arm underneath or overhooked the underhook that a Ciryl Gane has got. And he starts to really push his hips and essentially bend a Ciryl Gane's head down and chest down and in to his forearm. And that is a lot tighter than it was 2 seconds ago. Jon Jones' body up above the guillotine, putting pressure down on Ciryl Gane's head. Ciryl Gane's nose, trying to make Ciryl Gane's nose touch his own chest. The underhook giving him the pressure to really push down on top of the head as well to get the leverage that Jon Jones needs here. Sometimes an arm in guillotine is better than a regular guillotine. Not often, but I think in a position like this, it actually probably is, just because of the fact that you get the leverage of the shoulder on top of them, that you can really like push into them to cause their whole upper body to bend down and in. And a Ciryl Gane taps right there. Anyways, that's just the breakdown of this fight. Just kind of wanted to go over this. As usual, these videos are a little longer than I mean them to be. I end up talking a lot more than I mean to. But hopefully you guys get something out of this, and please like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Comment, tell me what you think I'm wrong on. I'm always open to criticism, so forth. Hope you guys have a great day.